Hey guys. This is part 2 of What If Naruto was mentored by Kakuzu and became a bounty hunter. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 5, Kindred. Naruto bent low, performing a picture-perfect sweep kick on his imaginary opponent. He immediately raised his left arm, the one Kakuzu had cut off 6 months prior, and prompted several threads to shoot out from the stitches and pierce the air. They moved in a downward arc and stuck into a tree, spread out in a fashion such that a real person would be pinned spread-eagle into the trunk. Naruto walked forward, hands still outstretched, and pulled out a kunai, applying a small amount of wind chakra and holding it up to his pretend foe's throat. Game, set, and match, he pronounced with a grin. You seem to have acquired an acceptable amount of control over Jiangu, brat, though perhaps you should consider fighting against an adversary who can actually fight back. Kakuzu, you're back, greeted Naruto, turning around to face his mentor. And you brought a friend, he noted slyly. Hardly, snorted the mercenary, dropping the corpse of a white-haired male wearing ANBU armor from his shoulder. He rolled said shoulder lazily and cracked his neck, the sound echoing in the quiet clearing. The trip to Kirigakure was well worth the bounty this one will fetch. You were gone a long time, huffed Naruto, plopping to the ground and poking the missed ANBU idly with his foot. Kakuzu cuffed him from afar, his student not even flinching from the hit. I would like to see you penetrate Kirigakure's defenses with your measly skills, retorted the hunter. Considering how difficult it is to get into the country, remain inconspicuous, find and capture the target, and then escape without raising suspicion, 2 months is hardly a long time. I expect you will take at least 6 your first time. Aha, Naruto agreed absently. Why the hell did you lug him all the way back without a sealing scroll anyway? I enjoy carrying the weight of my victims' bodies personally, he claimed, a tinge of pleased sadism in his voice. There is a high degree of satisfaction in carrying the amount of money you are to be compensated on your back. Perhaps you will understand in time, when you are stronger. Naruto harumphed unhappily, but let the acerbic comment go. Come, intoned Kakuzu, reaching down to pick up the corpse. You have had 9 months to train with Jiangu, and it looks as if you are ready for the next step. Really? Exclaimed Naruto. What's the next step? And where are we going? He continued, jumping up and skipping up to Kakuzu's side. Kakuzu shot him a look that the blonde chose to ignore. After a moment, the bounty hunter said, I plan on cashing in my prize. Then we are going to continue your training. I thought you weren't gonna help me with my training, Naruto chirped innocently. Kakuzu's look turned into a full-on glare. He reached over and shoved the blonde sideways with enough force to make Naruto impact a nearby tree and fall to the ground. Do not look a gift horse in the mouth, brat. When you get something free, take it, judge its usefulness, and then keep it or sell it. Now get up and shut up. Naruto pulled himself off of the ground and shook his head. He thought that he detected a hint of mirth in his teacher's voice but paid it no heed, too busy watching the swirling, colored dots dance in front of his eyes. Naruto would never understand what idiot came up with the idea of putting an bounty exchange station within a bathroom. Granted, the smell of the bathroom would likely hide the stench of any corpses brought in, but still, a bathroom? He held back a gag as Kakuzu tapped on the wall between 2 urinals, revealing a bald man with a dark mustache and goatee, a deep scar above his right eyebrow. The man stared at Kakuzu and Naruto for only a moment over the rim of his trench coat before turning around and beckoning them to enter. Kakuzu, greeted the man, walking over to the wall and pulling out a drawer. It's been some time. I see you even brought your protege back this time. Naruto, right? The blonde nodded as he and his teacher stepped forward to the open drawer, which turned out to be a sturdy table. You would do well to remember his name, Zangiai, retorted Kakuzu brusquely. He is well on his way to becoming a capable bounty hunter, meaning that you will have increased interaction with him in the future. Zangiai merely nodded, gesturing for Kakuzu to lay the corpse on the table. The former Takinin complied silently. I will keep it in mind. Now, who do we have today? The scarred man pulled out a bingo book and began rifling through its pages, reaching the section for Kirigakure and beginning to flip slower. Oh, it looks like you brought in a big haul, Kakuzu. Hozuki Mangetsu, Anbu rank, and a member of the 7 Shinobi Swordsmen of the Mist, Kumogakure and Kuzugakure both put 65 million ryo on his head. He must have been quite the fight. It was well worth the reward, returned Kakuzu. Brat, he stated, turning his attention to Naruto, we are headed to the land of Earth next. Pick a target from this while I count the money, he ordered, tossing Naruto his own bingo book. Naruto flipped slowly through the pages in an imitation of his teacher, who was fingering through the money Zangiai had handed him in a briefcase. After several minutes, Naruto turned the book towards Kakuzu, pointing at the right page. Him, he stated simply. Kakuzu looked up from the wad of cash in his hands, staring intently at the page before inclining his head in a brief nod. Shortly thereafter, the locking click of the briefcase could be heard. We shall be on our way, Kakuzu bade Zangiai. The scarred man nodded in understanding, showing Kakuzu and Naruto to the door before closing it discreetly behind him. Let us go, intoned the mercenary with a swish of his cloak. It only took a couple of hours of clipped travel to cross through the land of grass and reach the border of the land of earth from where the exchange point was stationed, but Naruto was grateful for the time. Kakuzu had spent a lot of time drilling into his head that he needed to think things through, but even still, it was difficult to do so unless it was quiet. The blonde knew that this wasn't a normal hunt. Despite having been on only 2 bounty chases, Kakuzu had only accompanied him once, and the 11-year-old hadn't chosen the target in either case. The handling of the bingo book had been the first indication that something was different about this particular case. Most of the time, Kakuzu just told Naruto where he was going and who he was to capture. Suspicious, Naruto had purposefully chosen a low-value target, barely a jonin and worth next to nothing. On any other occasion, Kakuzu wouldn't have even wasted his time with such a pointless mission, and more likely than not would have attempted to beat the ever-loving shit out of Naruto for even suggesting the hunt. But to say nothing and merely nod his acceptance of the blonde's choice? Something was up, and Naruto was determined to find out what. Hey Kakuzu, why are we going after this guy? You chose him, replied the tall man curtly. When he didn't elaborate, Naruto decided to try again. Yeah, but you never go for these small fries. So why were you suddenly all for it? Kakuzu smirked beneath his mask. So you knew? The blonde nodded. I just don't understand why. Kakuzu halted suddenly, the action surprising Naruto. Have you ever wondered how I am able to utilize all 5 elements? Years of practice and experience? Shrugged Naruto unsurely. The mercenary snorted. That is one component, yes. However, the original abilities are a power of the black threads that now course through your body. It took a moment to digest exactly what the older ninja was saying. You mean, Jianga gave you that power? His teacher rolled his eyes. Precisely. Jianga has far more uses than you have discovered thus far, and you're not taking full advantage of them is an embarrassment. This, he continued, unzipping and throwing off the trench coat he always wore, is what we are after. Naruto gaped unashamedly at Kakuzu's back. Stitches, prized marks of the kinjutsu stolen years ago from the hidden waterfall, crisscrossed his body, turning him into a parody of some demented ragdoll. The truly impressive feature was the 4 animal masks, Anbu masks, he realized, held seamlessly in place on his back. Each of these, lectured Kakuzu, contains the heart of an opponent I have fought and killed. Continually replacing them has allowed me to extend my life, and use the remaining 4 nature chakras. Now, he finished shrugging his cloak back on, it is your turn. We are traveling to the land of Earth so that you can begin to use this secondary function of Jiangu. Why? Managed Naruto. Kakuzu chose to read through the subtext and answer his pupil's real question. You are wind-natured, which means you are naturally weak against fire users and strong against lightning users. To support your weaknesses, you will require Sudan and Doton-aligned hearts in order to properly cover the gamut of elemental chakra. Now let us continue, you know how I hate wasting time. Naruto trudged along just slightly behind Kakuzu, his mind caught in a daze from trying to process all of the new information he'd been presented. If his teacher was going to give some sort of long-winded dissertation every time he answered a question, Naruto was probably better off not asking some things. So, now that you've told me why we're in the land of Earth, does it really matter who I target? No, Kakuzu responded. You did choose a rather pathetic target, one not even worthy of our time, he added dryly. Bite me, retorted the blonde, flinching seconds later as Kakuzu shot him a chilly glare that promised pain. So, he drawled nervously, staring at the rocky terrain of the land of Earth and counting the border guards. Now what? Pick one of the pathetic shinobi in front of you to fight, and I will dispatch of the remainder, Kakuzu answered lowly, a manic glint entering his eyes. Naruto shuddered. He had noticed over the years that Kakuzu had rather frequent homicidal urges, and while the frequency with which he attacked Naruto had declined over time, he suspected that the reason the bounty hunter had a habit of being gone more than he was present was to satiate his murderous desires. The 11-year-old almost felt sorry for the rock Chunin on border patrol. He nodded to show he understood, and then both ninja moved. Naruto veered slightly to the right, aiming for the Chunin furthest from the rest. Kakuzu, noticing this, followed the blonde slightly, cutting off the other 4 Iwanin from Naruto's target. You have to get past me first, grinned Kakuzu, his skin darkening. Show me your worth. Meanwhile, Naruto cornered his own prey, a young man in his late teens with sandy brown hair and green eyes. Said orbs flickered intermittently in Kakuzu's direction, where Naruto could only presume his teacher was making short work of the other ninja. After allowing this action to continue for a couple of minutes, Naruto crossed his arms over his chest. You know, maybe you should pay attention to your real opponent. His words seemed to galvanize the Iwanin, who suddenly became more focused on the blonde. He ran through a short string of hand seals, putting his hands to the ground and causing several spires to rise from it. Naruto jumped to the right before leaping back to his original spot as more earthen spires erupted from the ground, reaching with one hand towards his weapon's pouch. How have you not finished yet? Called Kakuzu, interrupting Naruto's shuriken throw, all of which embedded themselves in a rock near his opponent. Kakuzu! Shouted Naruto. Shut up! This guy's annoying. I put up with you, do I not? He returned idly, inspecting one of his nails to emphasize his boredom. Naruto growled, the noise evolving into a raspy scream of frustration that began to erupt from the back of his throat. The Iwanin, sensing opportunity, jetted forward with a kunai extended for Naruto's neck. He never made it there. 10 feet away from the blonde, Naruto whipped around and threw forward his right arm, the black tendrils of Jiangu bursting forth and ensnaring the Iwanin. The teenager dropped his kunai as the threads wrapped securely around his wrists, ankles, and throat, completely restricting his movement and holding him aloft. Now what? Glared Naruto at his mentor. Use the power I have granted you to take his heart and make it one with your chakra system. Jiangu will know what to do. The green eyes of Naruto's captive widened at this proclamation, while the blonde merely shrugged. Naruto raised his left arm, allowing the black threads to slither out from the suture there. They shot forward suddenly, burying into the Iwanin's chest and causing him to gag. After a few seconds, the light dimmed from his eyes and the threads emerged, a pulsating something encased in their grasp. The bundle disappeared into Naruto's arm, and the blonde could feel a new power flooding through him. Whoa! Take off your shirt, commanded Kakuzu suddenly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the abruptness of the order but did as he was told, removing both the vest and shirt he wore. Kakuzu stepped up behind him, holding something up to his back for a matter of seconds before removing his hand. It is done, he intoned. Naruto wished he had a mirror. What's done? He asked, annoyed. I covered up your new acquisition with a mask. I assumed that you would not want blood and organs to go unprotected, he deadpanned, and so took the liberty of getting extra ANBU masks. Jiangu took care of the semantics. The blonde turned and stared at the taller ninja, understanding dawning in his eyes. You mean those last bounties? Do not read into my actions, brat, Kakuzu defended haughtily. I killed those ANBU because they were well worth the cost. The masks just ended up being additional perks. Now come, Hozuki's mask still requires a Suiton heart to house. Naruto looked around as Kakuzu came to a halt, the clearing they were currently in quite serene. A waterfall fell gently into a smooth lake, the peaceful feeling in the area relaxing Naruto's nerves. The new power he felt coursing through him had been somewhat overwhelming during the trek out of the land of Earth. If you want me to get a sweet and heart, shouldn't we keep going to Kirigakure? He asked. No, came the blunt response. As I mentioned before, Kirigakure is far away and very difficult to infiltrate. This place will serve two purposes. The blonde looked around, attempting to find something special about the clearing. Stumped, he sighed and bit down his pride. And where exactly is this place? This, Kakuzu presented with mock grandiosity, is the renowned secret entrance to Takigakure. His pupil looked at him in slight disbelief, causing the bounty hunter to rub the bridge of his nose in irritation. There is a reason Takigakure is named as such, brat, he ground out. Naruto eyed the waterfall, his mouth forming an O of understanding. Kakuzu rolled his eyes in frustration, thinking how fortunate it was for Naruto that killing the group of Iwanin had satisfied his homicidal urges. He reached into a sleeve and pulled out a picture, holding it up so Naruto could see. This is Tamura Tadao. He was my contact within the village for information, but he has outlived his usefulness. The blonde studied the picture, noting the man's features just as Kakuzu had told him to long ago. He possessed a slim face with blue hair and sulphurous yellow-green eyes, greediness glinting in their poisonous depths. If he was your contact, why do you want me to kill him? This bastard is trying to blackmail me, growled the former Takinin, and I do not allow such foolishness to go unpunished. He thinks that I will pay him a ridiculous sum of money in order to prevent him from telling the village about my existence and activities. Then why don't you kill him? My presence within my home village would not be an inconspicuous one, he snorted, and I do not believe I could control myself if I returned. There is a reason why there are no witnesses to any bounty hunting trips I take. You would do well to follow the same procedure. I guess I can do you this favor, the blonde acquiesced at last, grinning slyly. Tell me what to do. Naruto surfaced from the pool and gasped for air, immediately regretful of trying to make the mission out to be a bigger deal than it was. That bastard Kakuzu didn't tell me how long I would have to hold my breath for. I'll kill him. He hoisted himself from the water, dragging a briefcase out behind him. Fully out, he shook himself off and looked around. The pool he had come up in was one of several waterfalls trickling into all of them. Short grass littered the area, and a few trees were growing intermittently some distance away. Naruto placed the briefcase on the grass beside him, unfastening the locks and checking the contents. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the money Kakuzu had received from Zangia was still safe and dry. The blonde had asked his teacher for the briefcase in order to solidify the image of paying the blackmail ransom. Kakuzu had very reluctantly handed over the money, but not after telling him in vivid detail what he would do to the blonde if all the cash wasn't there upon his return. Naruto shuddered. The images were not pleasant. He got to his feet and picked up the briefcase, wandering aimlessly to the right. After 20 minutes of walking, he paused, sharp eyes catching sight of something interesting. Two teenage boys, obviously ninja, were picking on a third kid who looked to be about Naruto's age. They looked to be content with simply verbally abusing the third person until one of the boys shoved the other party. The kid tried countering, but that opened the way for the two boys to start physically beating on him. Suddenly the blonde heard a snicker not far away, and swiveled his head, finally managing to pinpoint an adult hidden carefully within a clump of bushes 100 feet away from the kids. Naruto eyed him carefully, noting blue hair and an angular jaw. That's the one, he thought. Naruto approached the man, clearing his throat to capture his attention. Sulphurous yellow-green eyes turned to face him, wide in surprise. Tamura Tadao? Naruto posed. Who's asking? Replied the man in a reedy whine. His voice grated on Naruto's ears, and the blonde was forced to visibly contain his flinch. Kakuzu sent me, he stated brusquely. I have the money. Ah, good, grinned Tadao. Let me see the briefcase. Naruto placed the briefcase down and unlocked it, turning it around so it opened towards the informant. The man's eyes lit up in excitement, allowing Naruto a moment to focus on the group of fighting children. Only the third kid was left, lying motionless on the ground. Well, it looks like it's all here, said Tadao in his high voice. Naruto heard the click of the briefcase locks as the Takinin closed it, deciding that now was the time to act. Pleasure doing business with. Naruto reached out with his right hand and grabbed the man's throat. Ah, blissful silence, he sighed. His eyes hardened and he brought the man right up to his face in the closest imitation of his teacher that he could muster. Kakuzu sends his regards, he whispered wickedly. Then he thrust his left hand forward, threads bursting forth just like with the Iwanin. Tadao's eyes widened and then glazed over as the threads stole his heart and assimilated it into Naruto's system. He dropped the corpse of the informant as power flooded his body again, causing him to moan. The blonde rubbed his forehead to try and stave off the headache he felt coming. Okay, there should really be a label for side effects on that scroll, he groaned. Suddenly, a kunai was at his throat. Who are you, and why did you kill this man? Demanded a tomboyish voice. Naruto mentally berated himself for dropping his guard. He felt the kunai tickle his skin and realized that he had yet to answer the question. This man was a traitor to your village, he explained, deciding that half-truths might just get him through this. Say you're right, retorted the voice after a short pause, that would imply that you don't even belong to the village. Where's your allegiance? Naruto gulped slightly. He preferred to kill only when necessary, or worthwhile, as far as bounty hunting went, and judging by the voice behind him, his captor was too young to be worth any significant reward. He began to work the black tendrils in his body towards attacking his opponent, waiting for the right moment. I have no village allegiance, he hazarded, stalling in the meantime. The person behind him was silent for a moment, and Naruto figured he or she was mulling over his answer. He stayed perfectly still until he heard his captor groan, the hand with the kunai retracting just a hair. That was enough for him. The blonde quickly threw up his right arm, pushing away the kunai and leaping away in one swift movement. He turned around to see his opponent, a thin, tan child around his age with light green hair, clutching his or her stomach in pain. The kid groaned, and Naruto felt something prickle his conscience. Kakuzu's gonna kill me, he sighed. Are you okay? He tried. Do I look okay? Snapped the kid, the voice, while tomboyish, now distinctly female. Not particularly, shrugged the blonde. Hey, you look familiar, he realized. It took a minute of staring before it finally clicked. Naruto reached into one of his many pockets and pulled out a battered photo. He held it up next to the girl and ordered her to lift her head up. She looked up so Naruto could see her face, and he gasped when he saw a black bruise painted around one of her orange eyes. You're the Jinchuriki. Fu, right? Another moment then, hey, you were the one being picked on earlier. Your powers of deduction are astounding, she grit out. How do you know I'm a Jinchuriki? Naruto nudged the body of Tadao. He was an informant for my mentor, he finished after a pause. Why were those kids picking on you? Fu scoffed. You wouldn't understand. The blonde was silent for a long time. At length, he spoke in a solemn voice. They think you're a monster. They blame you for the deaths the Biju inside of you caused. You're the target of all of their pent-up rage and hatred. Worst of all, you can't defend yourself, because then people think that you're attacking them. Am I close? All Fu could do was stare at him in wonder. How? Do I know? He finished rhetorically. He looked down quietly in shame, as if debating what to say. I know because I'm just like you. I am the host to the QB. Fu was too stunned to speak. Naruto watched as her eyes seemed to go blank for several seconds. After a moment, they seemed to refocus, and she removed her hand from her stomach, where it had been resting to quell the pain. You're telling the truth, she whispered in awe. I never thought I'd meet another person like me, someone who shares my pain and understands. You believe me, just like that? He questioned skeptically. She smiled wryly. I spoke to the bug. At Naruto's inquiring gaze, she elaborated, Nanabai no Kabutomushi. Apparently he was reacting to the presence of the QB, and that's why I was in pain. He wasn't quite sure how to respond to that. Then, suddenly, an idea occurred to him. Are you accepted in this village? Not really, she replied. Why? No real reason, he shrugged carelessly. But if you're looking for acceptance, I think I know a place where you can find it. Interested? Kakuzu strode, he never paced, back and forth in the clearing his blonde pupil had left well over an hour ago. It wasn't that he was worried about him, but the idiot did have his money. Tadao shouldn't have proven to be such a big problem, but if Naruto had gotten caught, even a platoon of elite Takinin, as few as they were, might have been able to overwhelm him with his limited experience. That brat has 5 minutes before I go in there and take off his head for losing my money. Fortunately, Kakuzu didn't have to wait that long. After 3 minutes, bubbles began to form in the middle of the water, attracting his attention. Moments after, Naruto's blonde head burst through the surface, followed by several deep gasps of air. Brat, growled Kakuzu, where is my money? The black briefcase containing Kakuzu's cash flew through the air and landed on the bank next to the tall man. Good, he stated after checking the contents. Now hurry up. I do not wish to dally here any longer than necessary. That was when a second head burst through the water, also taking in gulps of air. Kakuzu immediately began preparing a powerful technique to take care of the intruder, but Naruto's spluttered wait caused Kakuzu to pause in curiosity. He waited until Naruto and the other person swam to shore and flopped onto the bank, chests heaving in rhythm. Kakuzu's green eyes stared with piercing intensity at the other person before switching their gaze purely to his pupil. You little shit, he hissed, what did you do? Naruto coughed up a lumpful of water before answering. I took out your guy and brought back Takigaker's third best secret, the Jinchuriki of the Nanabai. Aren't you proud? He smirked. Kakuzu hauled the blonde up by his collar, bringing him within inches of his face and leaking powerful killer intent. What was your intention by bringing this pest out with you? I thought that, maybe, you could help train her, like you kinda did with me? Do not presume to speak for me, you insolent pest, snarled the mercenary. You were the first student I have ever taken on, and until you have earned your keep, I will consider even that a mistake. I will not allow you to drag me into training another useless, annoying sack of flesh. Before Naruto could protest, Fu's voice cut through Kakuzu's rant. You never told me that Kakuzu was your teacher, Naruto. Her voice was a mixture of fear and awe, and Kakuzu dropped Naruto carelessly onto the grass before walking over to her. The bounty hunter leaned in close, appearing to inspect her before saying in a dangerously low tone, What have you heard of me, little girl? Only what the history books have told us, shrugged Fu. That after becoming a great ninja and then failing to assassinate the Shodai Hokage, you betrayed the village, but not before stealing Jiangsu, and the heart of some guy. Dunno, that part was pretty vague. But you're an inspiration to me. Kakuzu raised one eyebrow. Most people do not have such a reaction to my deeds and actions. My name's Fu, and I hate Taki as much as I think you do. Naruto gave me something to believe in, where before I only experienced pain and misery. She removed her hideate from where it was wrapped around her arm and scored it with a kunai, symbolizing the end of her village affiliation. Will you take me on as a second apprentice, Kakuzu-sensei? Kakuzu punched her head, but was surprised when the Fu in front of him burst into a cloud of dust. Interesting trick, he called aloud to the surrounding foliage. It's part of my Biju's abilities, returned Fu's voice. Pretty cool, huh? The green-haired girl jumped down from a tree, landing not too far from Kakuzu. So, am I enough of an asset for you to train now? The tall ninja looked at her for a long moment, considering the request. At length, he turned away, picked up the briefcase, and walked on. Do not call me sensei, was all he said. Naruto had to admit that while Kakuzu was interesting to hang out with, having Fu around was a blessing. It was great to finally be able to have someone his own age to hang out with, even if the past 3 months since Fu's arrival had been somewhat busy. While Naruto had been adjusting to the random power surges of the new Suiton and Doton chakras within him, Kakuzu had drilled Fu on all of her abilities. Unlike Naruto, who seemed to have been granted limitless chakra and elevated healing abilities, Fu's main ability allowed her to utilize the Jinten element, what she called dust release, a combination of wind and earth elements. Currently, Both Naruto and Fu were waiting for Kakuzu in their usual training field on the outskirts of Onanji. Naruto eyed Fu using his peripheral vision, taking notice of her outfit change. She wore a short fishnet shirt under a slightly shorter white shirt, which revealed her abdomen. White armlets covered her arms up to just past her elbows, and white ninja shoes protected her feet. A white skirt covered more fishnet material which went down to mid-thigh, and Fu's scored waterfall forehead protector was in place on her right bicep. An empty, red cylindrical bag hung on her back, held in place by crisscrossing red straps over her chest. Risque, he thought offhandedly. Kakuzu's curt greeting of "brat, Fu" cut off his thoughts. "How come you don't have a derogatory name for her?" pouted Naruto. "She has respect for me," he replied blandly, "and she does not annoy the shit out of me like you do." Naruto huffed indignantly, causing Fu to giggle lightly. "As for the real reason I am here," continued Kakuzu, "close your eyes and hold out your hands, brat." Naruto did as he was told, and seconds later he heard Fu gasp. He felt a brief sense of excitement before there was a swishing sound and Naruto lost the feeling in his right arm. He opened his eyes to find the black threads of Jiangsu reconnecting his now severed right arm at the same junction it had done a year ago with his left one. "This is becoming a habit with you," Naruto told Kakuzu in a voice unfazed by his lack of appendage. "True," droned his teacher, "but I wanted to demonstrate to you the capabilities of your new weapon." Naruto's eyes found what the tall ninja was referring to, a wakizashi with a 12-inch glistening steel blade connected to a plain black handle. "Whoa," he murmured, reaching out with both hands as his right arm finished reattaching to his body. "You got this for me?" he choked out. "For fuck's sake, do not get all emotional on me," Kakuzu chastised. "This will expand your thus far limited repertoire and aid in your wind chakra manipulation. I expect you to pay me back for that in the years to come." "So are you gonna teach me how to use it?" Naruto asked, voice filled with awe as he sheathed and unsheathed the weapon over and over again. "No," scoffed the bounty hunter, "I have little use for such trivialities. So while I train your new friend here, you will serve under a kenjutsu master I managed to find for you." As Naruto quirked an eyebrow in curiosity, Kakuzu motioned towards the forest where two figures in black cloaks were appearing. The shorter of the two possessed raven black hair and blank crimson eyes, his face betraying no emotion whatsoever. The taller one rivaled Kakuzu's height, and carried a tremendous object wrapped in white bandages on his back. Naruto could only surmise that this man was to be his new teacher. "Does he have blue skin?" wondered the blonde as they got closer. He also noted slits in the man's neck, gills, and beady, bloodshot eyes that shone with a sadism which probably surpassed Kakuzu's own. "This is Hoshigaki Kisame, one of the former 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist," Kakuzu introduced without emotion. "He will train you for the next year using whatever methods he so desires." Kisame grinned at this, revealing row upon row of sharp teeth. Naruto gulped slightly, but otherwise made no other move which revealed his emotions. "We're gonna have a good time, aren't we, fishbait?" chuckled Kisame. Naruto shot a scowl at Kakuzu, who completely ignored it, before following Kisame and the other man away from Onanji and northeast towards the Land of Lightning. Fu waved a rather tepid farewell before following Kakuzu in the opposite direction to continue her training. Both Jinchuriki had a long year ahead of them. Omake. Kakuzu wandered down the practically deserted street, Fu walking in front of him and gazing at the buildings in wonder. While he recognized that Naruto would start training with Kisame tomorrow and Fu needed a legitimate ninja uniform, he wasn't particularly happy about going out and spending more money on his wayward pupils. The bounty hunter was shaken from his musings by the sound of a bell chiming. He looked up to find Fu disappearing through the door of the same ninja supply shop he had visited years before. He gave a long-suffering sigh that betrayed his annoyance before waiting idly outside, a silent sentinel. 20 minutes later, the Seven-Tails Jinchuriki reappeared dressed in the most ridiculous outfit Kakuzu had ever seen. While fishnet could be considered a staple of ninja attire, I failed to see the practicality of such stupid clothing choices, he criticized. "It helped show off my girlish figure," Fu chirped. "What figure? You have the body of a 12-year-old, he deadpanned. I am a 12-year-old, she huffed indignantly. Besides, I like it. These clothes allow me flexibility and room to grow into, so someday I can use my figure. Let us assume for a moment that all of that is true, allowed the tall ninja. What possible purpose does that serve? He pointed to the red, cylindrical object strapped to her back. No idea, she said, but it looks cool. Noticing the vein throbbing in Kakuzu's forehead, Fu smiled sheepishly and added, I'll find a use for it at some point. There was silence for a long moment as Kakuzu fought down the urge to kill the girl. I expect a full reimbursement, with interest, he threatened before walking away. Fu merely pumped her arm in excitement at having won the right to keep her new clothes. Chapter 6 Motion Suiton, Suikoden no Jutsu. Naruto quickly stopped channeling chakra to his feet, allowing his body to plummet below the surface of the lake. The water shark bomb sailed harmlessly overhead, splashing mere feet away from where he had been standing. He mentally congratulated himself for his quick thinking, swimming quietly towards where Kisame was standing in the vain hope that the blue-haired man wouldn't know his location. The blonde Jinchuriki had been training on and off with the former Kirinin for roughly a year, the lessons stopping due to changing locations based on the missions Kisame and his partner had to go on. With those exceptions, they had stayed around an independent part of the land of hot water which called itself the Land of the Sea, a stretch of rural country between the lands of fire and lightning which bordered the ocean and dabbled in fishing. The area consisted of a large lake which sat in the middle of a dense, foggy forest. Judging by how well it was hidden and how well Kisame knew the area, Naruto could only assume that he often frequented the area for his own training. The nice thing about having Kisame as a teacher was that Naruto had learned more than just swordsmanship from the man. He had left Kakuzu before being able to take full advantage of the new elements surging within him. Fortunately, ex-Miss Shinobi Kisame had taught Naruto a bunch of common Suiton moves that most Kirigakure Chunin knew, as well as the basis of some of the more difficult ones. It was, at the very least, more than Kakuzu had ever taught him in one sitting. As the year had passed, Naruto had noticed that he kept comparing Kisame to Kakuzu. While Kakuzu was ruthless, obsessed with money, and normally wouldn't do anything unless it benefited him in some way, Kisame was a strict taskmaster, forcing Naruto through motions again and again until he had perfected them. Comparatively, Kakuzu usually taught Naruto the bare minimum of what he felt the blonde needed to know, and then left him to his own devices. Barring the obvious sadistic streak and bloodlust, there were very few similarities between the two giants. Besides teaching, the most useful contrast between the two was that Kisame was far more willing to talk than Kakuzu. So willing, in fact, that Naruto could swear planting him with the blue-skinned man had been part of Kakuzu's plan all along. That bastard would somehow find a way to make a gain by getting rid of me. Apparently, the black cloaks with red clouds that Kisame and his partner wore symbolized their affiliation with Akatsuki, an organization that Kisame described as being dedicated to world domination. The group was still somewhat new, having formed shortly before his birth, but it had already earned a reputation as an effective terrorist organization. According to Kisame, Akatsuki was currently focusing on attaining large sums of money in order to back their plan, which explained its interest in Kakuzu. The group operated in pairs, and Naruto found himself hard-pressed to find a stranger partnership than the one he was currently enmeshed in. Kisame's comrade was a stoic man by the name of Uchiha Itachi, the surname ringing a familiar bell with the blonde. It had taken a solid 2 weeks for Naruto to find out that information, the raven-haired man silent until Kisame had ribbed him into finally introducing himself. Naruto was constantly wary of Itachi. The Uchiha clan had taken no great strides in attempting to improve his former life in Konoha, and while he didn't know Itachi personally, he wasn't taking any chances. Additionally, while the Uchiha was an obvious missing link from their home village, Naruto wasn't sure exactly what Itachi knew of him, if anything. Fortunately, the raven-haired man, while apparently in charge of the larger and more intimidating Kisame, had done little to nothing to interfere with or stop Naruto's training. Not that Itachi not interfering with his training made it any easier. Naruto swam up from beneath Kisame, mentally thanking the man for training him how to hold his breath for long periods of time. He stealthily began to rise to the surface, closing in on 20 feet away when his teacher looked down and grinned wickedly. The blonde had seen that look many times on the former Kirinine in the past year, and had learned that the amount of sharp, glistening teeth that could be seen in his mouth was a good indication of how much trouble he was in. Even from his current distance, Naruto felt like he could almost count each individual tooth. Ah shit! Kisame clapped his hands together, and then placed his right one on the surface of the lake. Suetun Gashokazame. From each of his fingers came a shark made entirely of water, all of them swirling down through the lake and targeting the blonde. Naruto yelped in surprise, but only managed to release a stream of bubbles that the sharks promptly tore through. Thinking quickly, he formed 3 hand seals and began to rotate in place. Mizu no Tatsumaki, he thought. A swirling vortex of water formed around him, serving as protection and partially destroying all 5 sharks. He stopped spinning after several seconds and mentally sighed in relief. Okay, one obstacle avoided. Naruto looked up to see Kisame's grin grow wider. How is that possible? Before re-examining his surroundings, the sharks that he thought he had destroyed began to reform before his eyes, the water from the lake filling in the parts that his technique had destroyed. 1, he counted, 2, 3, 4, wait, where's the 5th? He turned around just in time to find the last shark bearing down upon him, and resisted the urge to yelp in panic. Stretching out his arms and legs, Naruto caught the shark's wide jaws as it attempted to snatch him up. It thrashed violently, trying to shake the blonde off to attack him properly, but Naruto held on tight. Frustrated, the shark raced to the surface, breaking through the glass-like top of the lake at a breakneck speed. Fortunately for Naruto, the shark lost cohesion as soon as it lost contact with the water. Unfortunately for him, the momentum from the shark continued to propel him through the air. Oh! He screamed as he flew in an arc over the lake and towards the shore. He hit the ground clumsily, rolling head over feet before springing up with his wakizashi raised defensively. The large, bandaged weapon that Kisame affectionately called Samehada connected with Naruto's blade, forcing the blonde to dig his heels into the ground to keep his balance. Even so, the power behind the attack moved him back a solid foot. Naruto wasn't entirely sure why the blade had a name, but after fighting against it for the better part of a year, he wasn't about to question Kisame's methods, especially considering that he had yet to win against it. All he knew was that letting the bandaged weapon touch him was a bad idea. It stole his chakra and caused an annoying burning sensation that lasted for a while. Gotta gain leverage, Naruto sweated as Kisame applied more pressure to his weapon. Kihihi, laughed Kisame, it's over, fishbait. Naruto raised one eyebrow and opened his mouth to respond, but found himself, once again, surrounded by water, a strange sphere of the liquid that was levitating above the ground. Suiro no Jutsu, commented the Akatsuki member. You're completely immobilized. Forfeit, or I can take off a leg, he offered hopefully. Fine, grunted the blonde, you win. The water surrounding him collapsed suddenly, allowing him to fall to the earth, chest heaving slightly. Naruto craned his head and caught sight of a second Kisame behind him, which promptly collapsed into water. Damn, he thought. He heard a heavy footfall in front of him and looked up to see Kisame standing there, Samehada once again strapped to the man's back by its leather harness. You did better than I thought you would, fishbait, Kisame told him. You're no master of either Suetun or Kenjutsu, but you have enough skill to get by for now. Naruto grumbled half-heartedly, frustrated that he hadn't gotten closer to beating the giant sword wielder. The year is over, your training is done, spoke a bland voice from the trees. Both ninja looked over to see Itachi standing in front of a sturdy oak, his expression blank. Kakuzu is about a 4-hour walk in that direction, he pointed. Kisame, we have a mission. Let's go. Sure thing, Itachi. See you round, fishbait. Maybe next time you'll have a chance at beating me. Kisame flashed one of his patented smirks at Naruto before following Itachi in the opposite direction the X-Leaf Nin had pointed. Naruto waved a hand in farewell, mildly confused at the abrupt exit, then headed to where Kakuzu was waiting for him. If there was one thing that Naruto would grant Itachi, it was that the man was accurate to a fault. It took just over 4 hours to find Kakuzu and Fu waiting in a rather large clearing with a small pond nearby. Brat, Kakuzu greeted as Fu waved, I trust that your training went well. Fine, he replied quickly, trying hard not to compare Kisame's and Kakuzu's sadism. How was yours? He asked reflexively. Fruitful. It is amazing what one can accomplish when one has a competent student. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the tall ninja but chose not to rise to the bait. Did you get any other information? I knew it. The only reason you got Kisame to train me was to gather information on Akatsuki, he accused. It was not the only reason. I also wanted to get rid of you for a time. Naruto fought the urge to punch his first teacher in the face while Fu tried her hardest not to laugh. I ask again, what did you learn? Naruto told Kakuzu all of the information that he had gathered from Kisame about Akatsuki. The former Takinin digested it all with an unchanging expression, waiting until the blonde was done talking before humming in thought. While not overly useful, at least you managed to figure out something, Kakuzu admitted. As a result, I will allow you an opportunity to claim a reward. How unusually gracious of you, Naruto deadpanned. What's the reward, Kakuzu? Fu asked. This year, the biannual Chunin exams are being held in Kanehigakure, Kakuzu explained. They are open to all allied countries, meaning that ninja from AIM, Taki, Kusa, and Suna will be there competing against Konoha. If you truly want revenge against Konoha's populace for its treatment of you, the Chunin exams will be your best opportunity to infiltrate the village and decide how to do so. You'd be willing to enter me in the Chunin exams, just to help me get vengeance? You and Fu, corrected the bounty hunter. Naruto cheered and Fu gave him a quick hug in celebration, but Kakuzu interrupted by clearing his throat. However, you have to defeat me first. Say what? 2-on-1, Kakuzu explained. If you can kill me just once, I will assist you in entering the Chunin exams. If not, we will find some pricey shinobi to kill, reap the bounties, and you can eventually find your own way to get revenge, should you so desire. Okay, so, when do we start? Fu asked. Now, stated the taller ninja, detaching both fists from his wrists, and allowing Jiangu's tendrils to carrying them towards his students. Fu rolled to the right to avoid Kakuzu's left hand, while Naruto, shorter than the girl, bent backwards to avoid the other one. The blonde grunted as he fell on his rear, Fu charging in to attack Kakuzu. She threw a hasty punch that Kakuzu maneuvered around, spinning in almost slow motion and delivering a powerful roundhouse kick to her back. Fu skidded head over feet along the ground, grinding to a halt a short distance away from where Naruto was currently seated. Comfortable? He offered. Fu coughed once, spitting to the side and rising to her feet. Very, she retorted sarcastically. Naruto grinned in response, waiting until Fu's eyes met his own before exchanging nods with her. The unspoken message was simple: both would distract their teacher and take advantage of any opening the other could garner. Fu darted around in a semicircle, stopping 50 feet behind Kakuzu. Naruto rose to his feet and settled into a fighting stance, prompting Kakuzu to raise an eyebrow. For 3 seconds, only the wind rustling through the foliage made any motion. Finally, Kakuzu turned around to face Fu instead of Naruto, an action which raised the blonde boy's ire. What, suddenly she's more important than I am? That bastard, I'll show him! He charged his teacher, Fu following suit shortly thereafter. 5 feet away from Kakuzu, Naruto suddenly stopped, and then fell flat on his face. I see Kisame did not beat your impetuousness out of you. Your pride will be your undoing one day, criticized Kakuzu as Fu closed in on him. Naruto looked at his feet, blue eyes widening in surprise at the black tendrils wrapped around them. He quickly followed the trail to where the tendrils disappeared into the bottom of his teacher's cloak. That's resourceful. I wonder how long that took to master? Naruto didn't have long to wonder. Fu arrived on the scene, throwing another, harder punch at Kakuzu, who, unable to dodge, caught it. As the girl reared her other hand back, the black threads holding Naruto lifted from the ground, spinning him around and slinging him in the direction of the pond. Not again! He complained, creating a large splash as he hit the water and sank deep. Meanwhile, Kakuzu had caught Fu's second punch and the two were locked in a struggle of strength that the older ninja was winning. Too weak, thought Fu, sweating in exertion as the older Nukenin pushed her backwards, the black tendrils of Jiangu wriggling around her like snakes. Then, struck by inspiration, she used Kakuzu's grip to flip her body, landing both feet in a solid connection with the underside of Kakuzu's chin. His head snapped back, and the Nanabai Jinchuriki took advantage of the broken deadlock by backflipping away and rotating the pain from her wrists. Clever, complimented Kakuzu, rolling his neck back into its proper position. But how will you follow it up? Like this, shouted a different voice. Suetun, Baku Sui Shoha. A medium-sized wave of water rose from the lake, Naruto riding its peak as he directed it towards Kakuzu, Fu backpedaling swiftly and finding purchase among some tree branches. Ha! Panted Naruto. Take this! He cried as the wave broke over his teacher. After half a minute, the water settled into a relatively small area, only a couple inches deep. Fu abandoned the tree she was in, applying chakra to stand on top of the water like Naruto was doing far across from her. Too much for yet, Kakuzu? Taunted Naruto, his irritation at his teacher granting him cockiness. Arrogance must be earned, brat. You overestimate your power, replied the bounty hunter, rising slowly from his crouch between the two Jinchuriki. I see that Kisame taught you more than mere swordsmanship. However, he continued, reaching his full 6-foot height, do not presume to defeat a former Suetun expert with his own weapon. Naruto, currently facing the former Takinin, scrunched his face in disgust and pointed at Kakuzu. He whined childishly, what the hell happened to your face? Kakuzu's eyes darted momentarily to the water, and after noticing a scrap of black fabric floating away, reached up with one hand to feel his head covering. The triangular piece that normally covered his mouth and nose was missing, revealing his full face to Naruto for the first time. The bridge of Kakuzu's nose looked permanently aged, a crease right below where the mask normally covered. Naruto was briefly reminded of Itachi and the distinctive, premature stress lines he possessed just below his eyes. However, the truly disturbing part about Kakuzu was his mouth, over half of which was essentially stitched shut. From what he could see, 3 loops of thread kept the former Takinin's mouth sewed closed on either side. Is that a side effect of Jiangu? Naruto posed hesitantly. Kakuzu reached down and picked up the fabric, reattaching it to the white head covering and glaring daggers at the blonde. Nothing comes without a price, he stated at last, something I am sure I have taught you already. And everybody ages, something which I thought I would not have to teach you. His piece said. Kakuzu's fist shot forward with lightning quickness, nailing Naruto in the sternum and belly before he could react. The older ninja's hands sunk in a little deeper before Naruto turned into water. He anticipated my move. Perhaps the brat has learned something after all. I see that Kisame also taught you how to perform Mizubunshin, Kakuzu called to the air. That is good, it is a very useful technique, provided you have the water to use it. Kisame-senpai did a really good job with my training, affirmed Naruto, rising from the pond. Granted, I need water to use the Bakusui Shoha and he doesn't, and mine definitely isn't as powerful as his, but he did open up my moveset a little bit. Now let's continue, he said, settling into an offensive stance again. Kakuzu nodded in recognition, but before he could move, he found a spike of earth protruding from his chest. Sorry, Kakuzu, commented Fu, a foot-long piece of earth formed around her hand, but it looks like we win. Nice job distracting him, Naruto. Not quite, Kakuzu told her, a steely glint in his eyes. Just like Naruto had, he dissolved into water, but instead of completely collapsing, the liquid flowed around and over Fu, encasing her in a bubble held in place by the Mizubunshin. Ah crap, complained Naruto, recognizing the water prison technique his battling partner was now trapped in. He reached behind and placed one hand cautiously on the handle of his sword before gazing around intently, wary of his teacher. Where are you? He sing-songed nervously. That was when a hand reached up through the earth and grabbed Naruto's leg, surprising him. Ah! He cried as he was forcibly pulled into the ground up to his shoulders. Kakuzu rose smoothly from the earth, grabbed the wakizashi from its sheath on Naruto's back, and fluidly moved it next to Naruto's throat. Yield, he commanded. Naruto growled in frustration but acquiesced to defeat for the second time that day. The water clone holding Fu collapsed, dropping the girl to the ground on hands and knees. Kakuzu brushed minuscule specks of dirt from his shoulders as he manipulated the earth around Naruto by channeling chakra through his feet. The blonde pulled free seconds later, hauling himself out of the ground and irritably swiping his weapon from the bounty hunter. I didn't even get to pull off my best moves, he pouted. Such a shame, drawled Kakuzu sarcastically. Fu walked over and patted Naruto's shoulder sympathetically. I am sure your potential must far surpass what you displayed, he continued in the same dry tone, clearly mocking his student. Hell yeah! What exactly was the purpose of that exercise? Asked Fu. Did you really think we would win, or were you just trying to prove a point? The latter. I wanted to make sure there were no misconceptions about the difference between our power levels, even in a 2-on-1 fight. Also, I felt that the brat needed to relearn respect, just to unlearn any bad habits Kisame may have taught him. Now come, you lost, and we have money to make. Actually, Kakuzu-san, I'd like to interrupt your plans. Naruto and Fu's heads snapped around in surprise, a direct contrast to Kakuzu's slow and purposeful turn. Standing under the shade of a copse of trees was a strange woman wearing a black cloak with red clouds, some sort of white flower stuck in her blue hair. Naruto, apparently mesmerized by the stud stuck underneath the woman's lower lip, leaned into Kakuzu without averting his eyes and whispered, "Who's she?" "I do not know," admitted the other man, "but staring like an idiot does not seem to be getting you anywhere." "I was once told by a man named Zetsu," Kakuzu stated a little louder, "that anybody wearing that outfit is a member of Akatsuki." "That is correct," confirmed the woman. "My name is Conan, and I'm the second in command of the organization. Might I have a word with you privately?" Kakuzu nodded and took a step forward, pausing momentarily to throw over his shoulder, "Listen in and I will kill you." The two Jinchuriki jumped slightly, but quickly nodded in understanding. "What do you want?" he demanded upon reaching Conan. "We," she emphasized, "would like you to reconsider your offer to go to the Chunin exams." The former Takinin's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "How long were you spying on us?" "Long enough," began Conan, "to know that your students have great potential and that you are the best option we have to complete our plans. While your concern for me and my students is touching," he drawled cynically, "I am not in the habit of breaking my word, and as the brats did not beat me, we are not going to Konoha," he finished firmly. Kakuzu turned around and prepared to walk away, but was stopped by what Conan's next words. "We know you are in possession of the Nanabai." The older ninja refocused his attention upon the blue-haired woman, silently prompting her to continue. "We could easily remove her from your presence, if we so desired. Even you could not stand against so many other S-class shinobi. I will hear you out." "Thank you," Conan bowed. "You have heard of Orochimaru?" Orochimaru, renowned as the Snake Sannin of Konoha and one of its most infamous traitors. Few people have not heard of him, he snorted derisively. "Why?" "We want you to kill him." Kakuzu raised an eyebrow at this statement. While not entirely outside the realm of possibility, the fight would be a difficult one, Kakuzu conceded. "Tell me why." 13 years ago, Orochimaru joined Akatsuki after defecting from Konoha, Conan explained. When Uchiha Itachi joined 7 years later, Orochimaru attempted to steal his body, but ended up failing. He was forced to flee the organization, taking his ring with him. "His ring?" Kakuzu interrupted. "The rings are the most important symbol of a person's affiliation with Akatsuki," she told him, flashing her own ring in the process. "However, that's merely one reason we want him gone. Orochimaru's current plans involve the 12-year-old container of the Ichibi. The Ichibi, and from what Zetsu has told me, that would interfere with your plans. I can only assume that this container will be present at the Chunin exams," Kakuzu extrapolated. Conan nodded. "From the intelligence we've been able to gather thus far, he plans on using the powers of the Jinchuriki to invade Konoha and take vengeance upon the village by destroying it." "A universal plan, it seems," muttered the bounty hunter. "And if I refuse to cooperate?" Conan's eyes darted to where Fu and Naruto were standing. "We'll take her and extract the Biju, killing her in the process." Kakuzu seemed to consider it for a moment, prompting Conan to finish her offer. "We're also allowing you to keep the money his head is worth." "Done," agreed Kakuzu without hesitation. "That is too large a sum of money to pass up simply because of principle. However, the brats will need a third teammate. If you would like my services, you will need to provide a competent and obedient person who can serve as one. Conan remained silent for a long moment, her eyes appearing slightly unfocused. Very well, she conceded at length, returning her attention to Kakuzu. Your last student will be waiting for you at one of our hideouts within the Land of Fire, near the border with the Land of Rice Paddies. We appreciate your cooperation, Kakuzu-san. Her piece said. Conan's figure appeared to ripple, breaking apart into hundreds of pieces of paper to be carried away by the wind. Kakuzu watched her disappear in silence. The shinobi of Akatsuki have very unique abilities. I would fit in quite easily, and would also do well to remain on their good side. Even with my skill, working against them would be hindering. He walked over to his students, who were currently engaged in a rock-paper-scissors battle, and kicked both of them. Get up, he commanded. It appears that you will get your wish after all. What do you mean? Asked Fu, standing up alongside Naruto. The tall ninja sighed wearily. Despite my desire to the contrary, we are headed to Konoha. Really? Naruto exclaimed, excitement visibly pulsing throughout his body. Even though we lost to you? What did that lady say? What have I told you about looking a gift horse in the mouth, brat? Kakuzu snapped. For now, simply accept your stroke of good fortune. Let us depart. We must pick up your wayward third teammate to be eligible for the Chunin exams. Another headache to look forward to, he grumbled. As Kakuzu led Naruto and Fu west toward the Land of Rice Paddies, the two Jinchuriki high-fived in victory, discussing in quiet tones the upcoming Chunin exams. A large quantity of paper fluttered into the center of a large forest in the southeastern part of the Land of Fire. They came together to reveal Conan, looking no worse for wear despite the strange method of travel. She held her ring, which displayed the character Byako, up to a sturdy tree, unveiling a white sheet of paper that was only one part of a complex sealing technique meant to ward off interlopers. The blue-haired woman walked straight into the tree, causing it to ripple slightly, and descended down a stairwell into a humongous open cavern. The cavern was void of all but two objects, one of which was near the back. A massive stone statue stood there, the top of which came only a couple 100 feet shy of hitting the ceiling. Spikes jutted out from behind the face, which possessed 9 eyes, 2 rows of 4 with a giant one in the middle to make the face symmetrical, all of which were closed. A stone scroll with a chain running through it was held by the statue's mouth, and 2 large hands, handcuffed together, jutted up from the ground, coming to about the statue's chin. The other figure was, surprisingly enough, even more imposing than the statue, a man of average build with spiky orange hair and the traditional cloak of Akatsuki. He turned around upon hearing footfalls, his ringed gray eyes, a series of concentric circles, boring holes into the new arrival. Kakuzu accepted the terms we set forth, stated Conan. Receiving no acknowledgement that she was heard, she continued, What are our plans, Pain? The gray-eyed man remained completely silent, but despite his unnerving stare and emotionless facade, Conan waited patiently for an answer. Kakuzu has agreed to take care of Orochimaru, Pain remarked at length, who has been a thorn in our side for far too long. Even if he has never acted directly against us, his defection and plans have stalled us unnecessarily. I still don't understand why we didn't just take him out when we had the chance, Conan pointed out. Pain blinked slowly, the only motion he made in response to his companion's query. Orochimaru is clever and resourceful. He has contacts in most of the countries the world over, and knows how to stay under the radar and manipulate the underground. Until now, we have been spread too thin to dedicate resources to attack him, but with Setsu's most recent information, we can finally begin our real plans, finished Conan. The Biju. Conan's partner nodded once. Correct. Zetsu and Sasori have managed to piece together enough information to deduce that Orochimaru plans on using Ichibi no Shikaku to destroy Konohagakure during the third portion of the Chunin exams. I know, Conan intoned impatiently. You made sure that I knew at least that much to get Kakuzu on board. However, what Orochimaru doesn't know is that we will also be there, Pain told her. And we will capitalize on his upcoming failure. The blue-haired woman nodded in understanding. And the girl? I can only assume you are referring to the Jinchuriki of the Nanabai no Kabutamushi, Pain guessed. At Conan's confirming nod, he continued, for now, we leave her. Kakuzu is a valuable asset, and we would do well to not endanger our current partnership with him by overextending our reach. What was his relationship with the children? Conan's eyes adopted a faraway look, trying to recall her conversation with Kakuzu. I don't know the man well enough to make an accurate judgment. He might care enough to pose an obstacle when we target the Nanabai, but if there's more incentive for him in her death, he would probably go along with the plan. Then we leave her alone, Pain repeated, along with the boy. Conan arched one perfectly thin eyebrow in confusion. The boy? You mean the blonde child with him? Pain turned around, eyeing all 9 closed eyes of the giant statue. Yes. Or, if you prefer, the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko, the most powerful of the Biju. The woman's eyes widened by a fraction. What? When did you find this out? Itachi informed me earlier today when I assigned him and Kisame their newest mission, Pain explained. Since the Kyubi needs to be sealed last anyway, it would appear to be doubly beneficial to keep Kakuzu near us as much as possible, especially following the Chunin exams. Keeping track of the 2 Jinchuriki will be much easier with their teacher close at hand and their power already in our clutches. So, we wait until the right time then, concluded Conan. Yes. Soon enough, our plans will begin in earnest. The orange-haired man stared at the second eye from the left on the top row of eyes. 1 down, 8 to go. Then, the world shall finally know peace, through true pain. Chapter 7, Obstacles. Ah, Kakuzu-san, a pleasure to see you again. Naruto and Fu both jumped as the strangest person they had ever seen emerged from a tree. His face and upper body were 2 colors, half black, half white, and he possessed yellow eyes, one of them pupilless, along with light green hair. A large Venus flytrap engulfed and protected his head, making him seem more plant than human, especially with what little they could see of him. Naruto was still fixated on the fact that this person had just morphed out from a tree. On the other hand, Kakuzu appeared to be completely unfazed. Zetsu, he greeted in a monotone, how unsurprising to run into you here. Zetsu merely stared at the tall ninja unblinkingly. With just under a week before the Chunin exams began, Kakuzu and his pupils had taken their time traveling the relatively short distance from their training spot to the land of rice paddies. The 7-hour trek had led them past the Valley of the End, the last battlefield between Konoha co-founders Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. Naruto and Fu were in awe at the sight of the awesome statues and roaring falls. Kakuzu had remained oppressively silent, and Naruto thought that perhaps the bounty hunter had scowled at the Senju's statue as they passed. About 10 miles away from the Valley of the End, the strange man whom Kakuzu referred to as Zetsu had popped out of a tree. As Kakuzu and Zetsu engaged in conversation, both kids were shocked to realize that the newcomer had 2 personalities. Apparently Kakuzu had already become acquainted with this trait of the Akatsuki member, for he seemed to be unalarmed by the contradicting voices. How have you been, Kakuzu-san? Implored White Zetsu politely. Do not engage him, snarled Black Zetsu. We are here for one purpose only, at the command of Leader Sama. That seems to be the general trend of things, Kakuzu commented dryly. Leader Sama is a man worthy of respect, Zetsu informed him, but enough of this idle chit-chat. We have other places to be. Come, we'll show you to your target. Zetsu unmerged completely from the tree, walking towards a rather large rock embedded in the ground. 3 sets of eyes followed him. The Akatsuki member held forth his right hand, and Kakuzu briefly saw the glint of a ring, positioned on a different finger than the one Conan had flashed him. The rock in front of the plant man slid slowly to the side, revealing a man-sized hole in the ground. Kakuzu could only conclude that the rings allowed members access to hideouts that were otherwise off-limits to lower minions. Your requested 3rd teammate is waiting in there, Zetsu said, and Naruto almost thought that he sounded snippy. We have other errands to run. Be nice, warned Zetsu's white side. Haro is a good boy, treat him well. With that, the plant man disappeared into the ground, 2/3 of his audience wide-eyed at the ability. The trio descended into the hole, the rock moving back into place to conceal the opening once Kakuzu's head cleared. Dim lamps hanging from the walls illuminated the short staircase that opened into a larger chamber, a circular area about 500 feet in diameter. Naruto was surprised to see the sheer amount of supplies that had been stored within the cavern. Ninja attire from multiple villages hung in neat rows along the walls. The blonde could easily pinpoint the standard Chunin and Jonin flak jackets, as well as A and BU armor, of both the Cloud and Leaf, with a massive surplus of the latter. Outfits from the Hidden Rain and Waterfall, while not as plentiful, could still be spotted interspersed between the two great nations, along with some strange attire with notable black and gray camouflage patterns. Hanging next to each village's clothing were rows of Hydeate, the one next to the unfamiliar clothing bearing a musical note. Naruto moved closer, deciding he wanted a closer look at the objects of the unknown village. Meanwhile, Fu had stepped in the opposite direction and had begun to admire the stock of weapons. Crates of kunai and shurikens sat against the wall, along with several smaller boxes of paper bombs. Spools of ninja wire and stacks of saban, the sharp, needle-like tools used mostly by medical ninja, lay in neat piles nearby. Multiple umbrellas, a weapon commonly affiliated with Amigekyu ninja, hung by their handles from hooks protruding from the wall. Also littering the wall were other weapons. Fu identified several tanto, taken from Leaf Anbu, she guessed, a couple of tonfa, 2 katana, and a kuzurigama before her knowledge of blades ran out. Several scrolls also hung from the cavern wall, and the girl wondered briefly at the army that could be prepared with the supplies they were currently surrounded by. Kakuzu's interest had been immediately drawn to a point halfway between where his two pupils were standing. "I presume that you are the third student Zetsu mentioned," he intoned. At these words, Naruto and Fu both turned their heads in the direction Kakuzu's voice seemed to be directed. A boy sat on a crate, his right arm hung loosely over his bent knee. He had short, cobalt blue hair that was styled up in a spiky mohawk and skin a shade darker than pale. The boy jumped off the crate, revealing himself to be slightly taller than Naruto and possessing stormy gray eyes. He was garbed in a black cloak with red trim, a duplicate of the Akatsuki cloaks without any red clouds, and a gray armor piece which was wrapped around his torso. "My name is Haro," he said by way of explanation. His voice was soft, but the way his eyes flicked from person to person showed Kakuzu that he was more analytical than shy. Haro bowed slightly and added, "You must be Kakuzu. I have been informed that I am to follow your instructions." Kakuzu smirked beneath his mask. "Ah, a child I would have no problem teaching. He recognizes power and is respectful," Naruto scowled, "and he does not wear a garish uniform." Fu placed her hands on her hips and huffed indignantly. "Tell me, boy, what are your abilities?" Haro's eyes flickered from Naruto to Fu, as if unsure whether to divulge information in front of them. An intelligent genin, Kakuzu noted with satisfaction, he watches his surroundings and plans his moves accordingly. "It seems that this leader I hear so much about has some worthwhile minions under his command. Speak," he commanded. "These will be your teammates, and understanding each other's skills is imperative for your cohesiveness as a unit." Not that Kakuzu really cared about teamwork, but that had been important back when he still worked for Takigakure, and would likely prove to be so once again during the Chunin exams. "I'm a sniper," Haro responded. Naruto's scowl gained a touch of confusion as one of Fu's eyebrows rose. Kakuzu's hard stare prompted the boy to elaborate. "I'm a mainly long-distance ninjutsu user proficient with right-hand techniques. Using the constant rain present in Amigekure, I'm able to pinpoint targets from far away and take them out." "Your leader must be an intelligent man, to use someone with your abilities in such a resourceful fashion," Kakuzu observed. "Pain-sama is a man worthy of respect," replied Haro devoutly. "He will save our country by eliminating Hanzo and his group of terrorists." The outburst was the first sign that Haro actually cared about something. "Interesting," mused the bounty hunter. "It seems his loyalty to Pain, whom I can only presume is this illustrious leader, is a pressure point for him. We shall have to be careful of that. However, it also means that he will be completely devoted to this mission so as to please his lord." "Excellent. Brat girl, speak." Fu stepped forward first. "I'm Fu, and I specialize in close to mid-range combat. My ninjutsu abilities lie in Dotan and Futan, as well as Jintan, a combination of the two." A moment passed before Naruto stepped forward, unwilling to test Kakuzu's temper. My name's Naruto, and I'm mostly a mid-range ninjutsu specialist with futon and suiton attacks. I've also got some kenjutsu training for close combat. If Kakuzu were a more expressive person, he probably would have exhibited a sense of pride in the fact that both his students had explained their abilities to a complete stranger without giving away any pertinent information, their Jinchuriki status or Naruto's kenjutsu, for instance. However, as he was not that type of man, he quickly shoved that thought to the back of his mind before ordering Haro to tell them what he knew of the mission. Not much, offered the cobalt-haired boy with a shrug. I was just told to wait here by the plant guy until someone came. Oh, the plant guy did say that we were to attend the Chunin exams as Amigekyo Shinobi, he added. That announcement caused Kakuzu to frown. While he knew that they couldn't waltz into Konoha as they were, the idea that they would have to disguise themselves as Rain Ninja was not one he was looking forward to. Of course, his first student had already taken matters into his own hands. Here, said Naruto, picking genin attire from the Amigekyo section of clothes, this looks like everything we'll need. He walked over to Haro and deposited a bunch of clothes into his arms, throwing another set at Fu. Kakuzu eyed the blonde critically as he was given his own, rather large, bundle of ninja gear. I guess that you have to wear this stuff too, huh, Kakuzu? He mentioned. Keep to your corners, or else, threatened the older ninja. He glared at Naruto, about to protest that there were no corners in the round cavern, until the blonde turned around. It wasn't a matter of being self-conscious, but if he had to don such a ridiculous outfit, he would do it without more comments about his strange body. The reveal of the mouth stitches during his battle with his students was plenty enough for now. 10 minutes later, all four were dressed in standard Aimnin attire. Naruto and Haro wore an elbow-length gray shirt over a blue shirt, with a pale green scarf wrapped loosely around their necks. Dark blue pants with 4 light blue stripes along the sides ended in black ninja shoes. Each boy had a tan kunai pouch attached at the back of their pants, and their arms were wrapped from elbow to wrist in bandages. Lastly, both had donned the Hideate of Amigekyo, a metal plate with 4 vertical lines sewn upon blue cloth. Haro wore his tilted and just off-center of his forehead, and muttered quietly about how he missed his own slash-through mark. While Naruto had been forced by Kakuzu to wear a full dark blue head covering, how many people in Konoha have bright yellow hair? Demanded the bounty hunter when Naruto whined, and would have to place a minor henjan to cover his whisker-like markings upon reaching Konoha. Fu was dressed in much the same fashion, wearing a red undershirt instead of blue and skin-tight pants that ended just above her knee. Her Hideate was tied around her right bicep, and the red cylindrical object she always carried remained in place on her back. It took a strong amount of self-restraint for Naruto not to comment on Kakuzu's current condition, considering the bounty hunter was never seen without his typical cloak, head covering, and mask. The former Takinin had been forced to wear a long-sleeved black shirt and pants, with Ames sea green, Jonin flak jacket over that. A dark blue material, a rain cloak, Naruto surmised, was draped over his shoulders and fell to his mid-forearm, the cloth open in the front for mobility. Like the genin, Kakuzu had wrapped bandages around the rest of his forearms down to the wrist, and kept a brown kunai pouch attached to his pants at the back. In order to keep himself fully covered, he had also donned a full head covering with the Hidden Rain Village affiliation on it, as well as a complex-looking rebreather to hide the remainder of his facial features. Get your supplies, he ordered gruffly, clearly unhappy with the way things were going. Naruto and Haro approached the kunai and shuriken crates, quickly loading their pouches with the weapons. Fu walked over to the wall of weapons and pulled several umbrellas from their perch, checking to make sure they were fully equipped with saban. She placed those in the red case on her back, the handles up, and then filled her own weapons pouch with extra saban. As Haro went to examine the weapons, she turned and flashed Kakuzu a victorious grin. Told you I'd find a use for this thing. Congratulations, he deadpanned, it only took you a year to do so. Bring whatever food from here that you can carry. I refuse to waste any money on pampering you brats while we are within Konoha. That's not necessary, Kakuzu-san, interrupted Haro, walking toward him while strapping a pair of katana, each with 2 smaller, oppositely curved metal pieces, approximately 2 inches in length, one near the base, the second close to the tip, to his back. Pain-sama has provided me with the funds we'll need in order to survive behind enemy lines. Very well, conceded Kakuzu after a moment. Come, let us depart. He turned around and led the way out of the hideout, Naruto, Fu, and Haro following not far behind. The trip to the center of the Land of Fire, where the hidden leaf was located, was far more active than Fu would have expected. Haro, who had no previous biases about anyone in the group, remained noticeably silent, observing his new teammates with growing curiosity. However, the thrill of the Chunin exams had apparently instilled an even greater sense of mischief within Naruto than she had thought possible. So we get to call you Kakuzu-sensei now, right? Naruto asked eagerly. He was a bit too enthusiastic with his questioning, in Fu's opinion. Kakuzu already hated honorifics tacked upon his name, and being reminded of it, if the last 3 times were any indication, did not improve his increasingly sour mood. Wearing clothes he was uncomfortable with, and being sent on a mission that he was not in control of seemed to shorten Kakuzu's already dangerously short temper. She noticed Haro watching the scene play out from the corner of his eye. No, Kakuzu answered in a clipped tone. Ah, come on. Naruto continued to egg, we need it to solidify our team disguise. No. Haro cleared his throat. Actually, it would be practical to refer to you as our sensei, in order to not appear suspicious to any Konohanin. Kakuzu remained silent for a long moment, appearing to fight the urge to do something detrimental to the mission, like killing Haro or Naruto. Only when we reached the village, he finally growled. They settled down that night in a large clearing Kakuzu estimated to be 20 miles away from the village. The bounty hunter told his team that they would arrive sometime in the afternoon the next day. Haro and Fu merely nodded, but Naruto chirped, "Okay, Kakuzu-sensei." Fu thought that, in the dead silence of the clearing, she could almost hear the final snap of Kakuzu's frayed, hair-thin temper. Kakuzu's arm detached, quicker than lightning, and grabbed a surprised Naruto around the neck. The blonde's arms flailed wildly as Kakuzu dragged him closer. Black threads erupted from beneath the bandages over his wrist and wrapped themselves around Naruto's arms, binding them to his body. Haro took a step forward and began to withdraw his swords, but Fu placed a forceful hand on his shoulder and shook her head. Naruto needed to learn this lesson. The two watched as Kakuzu brought Naruto right up to his face, the rebreather he was forced to wear the only thing separating the two. Listen well, brat, Kakuzu hissed, his muffled voice coming out even lower and more dangerous than anyone present expected. I have tolerated your foolishness far longer than I should have, and this childish wordplay and immaturity will cease immediately. You should be grateful for the fact that we have embarked on a dangerous mission that we know next to nothing about, where you get all the benefits and I am forced to engage in a battle I might not be completely prepared for. He lowered his voice further, so Haro and Fu could no longer hear him. I never had intention of taking a pupil until I was confronted by you. Now, after steeping years of time and money into your tutoring, I expect you to act like the shinobi you have been raised to be. You are the carrier of Jiangu, a technique few alive have even heard of. You possess the chakra capacity and abilities of a powerful shinobi, and I have bestowed upon you the resources necessary to survive and thrive within this hell of a world. Must I resort to more drastic measures in order to drill home this lesson? Naruto had stopped struggling once Kakuzu's diatribe had begun, and now he stared at the tall ninja with wide, blue eyes. You trained me? He asked reflexively, even as his mind traced the truth in his teacher's words. Shame began to flood his body, causing him to slump forward in defeat. He's right, Kakuzu was the first person to ever treat me like I was a person rather than a piece of dirt. I owe him a lot. The least I can do is show him some respect. The best taught lessons come from personal investment without outside influence, Kakuzu told him. When he noticed that Naruto seemed to understand his point, the black tendrils around his pupil loosened. I presume that you have learned your lesson? The blonde nodded slightly. Good. Now sufficiently calm, Kakuzu started to place the boy down, but then seemed to think better of it. He pitched his arm back and then threw Naruto forward, releasing the blonde so he impacted headfirst into a tree 20 feet away. Ah, Kakuzu-san, that doesn't seem like the way to treat your student. Kakuzu scowled. Zetsu, I thought you had errands to run. This one ended up being the most prudent, replied Zetsu, stepping out from the tree and right over Naruto. You almost hit me with him, he whined. My apologies, Kakuzu deadpanned. It appears that I will have to work on my aim in the future. Why are you here? We had to finalize plans for the passes which will allow you entry into the Konoha, the plant man said, handing Kakuzu 4 slips of paper. We had some help acquiring those, he admitted. Naruto, pulling himself to his feet, glanced into the copse of trees behind him and caught sight of a blood-red pair of eyes before they melded into the darkness. Itachi, thought Naruto, turning his attention back to the conversation. Whatever needed to be said had apparently been said though, for Zetsu immediately disappeared into the ground. Naruto thought he might have heard the plant man's lighter side laughing, at what, he didn't know, but brushed it off as a trick of his imagination. Your passes, Kakuzu said, handing them each one of the slips of paper. On it was their respective headshot, along with their name, village affiliation, and the fact that they had permission to enter the Hidden Leaf for participation in the Chunin exams. Naruto looked at the name on his paper and frowned. Why is my name Shinobu? His question prompted Fu into examining her own pass. The girl also frowned before looking over Haro's shoulder. The frown grew deeper. My name's Kazu, why does Haro get to keep his name? Kakuzu pinched the spot between his eyebrows with his thumb and forefinger, massaging the growing headache and rage that he was still nursing from his tantrum with Naruto. It is possible that either of you might be recognized by name, or even appearance, disguises aside, during our stay in Konohagakure. I can only conclude that it was decided you would be forced to use aliases, just in case someone from your former villages recognize you. Haro is an unknown entity, and thus could keep his own name because there is no potential danger to the mission. My name has also been altered. He held up his own pass so they could see that he had been registered as Aizo. Underneath that, he was identified as a Jonin instructor. I am no more pleased about it than you are, however, we must play the roles we are assigned, for now. He sighed, the breath coming out frustrated. Upon our arrival in Konoha, we shall use the names we have been given. You will refer to me as Aizo-sensei. The bounty hunter almost spat the name, as if it were a curse. When he turned away and stalked into the nearby foliage muttering expletives, the 3 teammates took that as the cue that they were to go to sleep. The quartet was up and walking just after dawn the following day. Not long after noon, they arrived at the large, welcoming gates of the Hidden Leaf village. The Chunin guards at the gate asked them for their passports, checked the papers, and waved them through. Kakuzu muttered something about lax security when they were out of earshot, and both Naruto and Fu forced themselves to hide their grins. The remainder of the day was slow. Kakuzu followed a group of grass shinobi to the hotel that was designated for all incoming foreign ninja. As they walked through the city, the 3 children tried not to gape in awe at the sights, their heads turning every which way to better see the village. Kakuzu went directly to his room upon reaching the hotel, closing and locking the door behind him. His 3 students collapsed upon their own beds, stripping off some of their more cumbersome clothing. The bounty hunter had kept them moving at a brisk pace all morning with almost no rest or food. Despite their training and stamina, the foreign clothes and the land of fire's humidity made for uncomfortable traveling conditions. Tired, and unwilling to press their luck in dealing with Kakuzu, the 3 relaxed around their room until evening and then went to bed. When Naruto awoke the next day, it was to sunlight streaming in through a small slit in the window curtains, and not the standard kick from his teacher. He yawned loudly, opening bleary eyes to watch Fu step out of the bathroom in her rain ninja outfit. Haro's bed was empty, and the connecting door to Kakuzu's room was open, presenting its emptiness as well. Scratching his head, he yawned once more, shooting Fu a confused look. Haro left to explore the city a little bit. Kakuzu's working on gathering information about the exams for us, she explained. Ah, he responded, tongue and mind still thick with sleep. How about I shower and dress and then we go explore? Sounds good. It took half an hour for Naruto to prepare for the day, mostly due to the fact that he didn't want to wear the full head covering to hide his blonde hair. The pair wandered the village, taking more time than they had the previous day to observe its citizens and establishments. Naruto, who hadn't seen Konoha since he had left 7 years prior, found the walk quieter than he remembered. It took a moment to realize that the villagers, whom before would scowl, curse at him, and whisper about him, merely ignored him. He wasn't sure whether to view the lack of attention as a positive sign or not. He did find it strange that Kakuzu's training seemed to have permanently embedded itself into his brain. When he and Fu passed the training field where a genin team was training with a tall, silver-haired man, a voice that sounded suspiciously like the bounty hunters whispered in his mind, Hatake Kakashi. Known as Kopi Ninja no Kakashi and Sharingan no Kakashi, rumored to have copied more than 1,000 ninjutsu techniques. Genin at 5, Chunin at 6, Jonin at 13, an ANBU member for several years afterwards, he possesses extraordinary insight and analytical abilities, and has a claim on his head in almost every nation. He is worth 80 million ryo. Naruto shook his head to clear the string of information from it. While useful, he, and to a more worrying extent, Kakuzu, couldn't bounty hunt within Konoha's walls without giving away their underlying purpose for being there. A growl of frustration ripped from his throat when they passed another team standing outside a barbecue restaurant, the voice murmuring, Sarutobi Asuma, son of the Sandame Hokage, former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja, Futon Affinity. His head is worth 35 million ryo. After another 3 internal monologues of people he recognized from the bingo book, Naruto quit fighting the feeling. He supposed that, once they were outside the city's walls, his ability to remember such important information would prove invaluable, though it was a little annoying right now. It was only after eating a hearty lunch at Ichiraku Ramen that Naruto's bingo book sense came across a peculiarity. Fu nudged him when he stopped in the middle of the road, eyes set on a far-off figure that appeared to be walking towards them on its hands. As the person neared, Naruto identified him, for the person was definitely masculine, as possessing a horrible bowl cut of black hair set over thick black eyebrows, wearing a solid green spandex jumpsuit and orange leg warmers. Mato Guy, Taijutsu specialist, began the voice, but as it blathered on and the person neared, Naruto's own thought of, I thought he'd be taller, surfaced. The blonde didn't even seem to register the fact that Mato Guy had come within speaking distance of him and Fu. Yash! Cried the handwalker. Excuse me, Ain-Nin-san, but you appear to be blocking my path. He jumped to his feet, bowing low. I assume you are here for the Chunin exams. Is there something I can help you with? Are you Mato Guy? Naruto asked impulsively. The green-clad boy's eyes immediately overflowed with tears. YOSH. Guy-sensei's legacy has spread even to the waterlogged fields of Amigakure. I am proud to hear that his accomplishments have gone so far. One of Naruto's eyebrows started twitching, and Fu felt a large sweat drop rolling down the side of her face. Alas, I fear you have made a mistake. My name is Rock Lee, and I am Konoha's beautiful green beast. And who are you? Na-an. Shinobu, corrected the blonde, shooting Fu a grateful glance for catching his mistake. He rubbed his ribs where she had nudged him, perhaps a little stronger than necessary. Kazu, added Fu, inclining her head slightly. We'd better be on our way. It was nice to meet you, Rock Lee. You as well, Kazu and Shinobu of Amigakure, shouted Lee exuberantly. May your springtime of youth never fade. Lee then flipped over onto his hands and continued his walk through the village, the 2 Jinchuriki watching him go. He's strange, commented Fu at length. Naruto could only nod mutely. Discovering the peculiarity of the genin of the hidden leaf was the first strange incident of the day. Naruto could safely say he was glad he had gotten out of the village before he had been infected with whatever turned normal ninja into that. Lee was someone to watch out for, though. In the ninja world, the stronger a shinobi was, the more peculiarities he had to compensate for the types of missions he went on. Kakuzu and Kisame, at the very least, fit into that stereotype extremely well. The second problem the 2 Jinchuriki encountered that day came in the form of 3 sand ninja they ran into on the way back to the hotel. The tallest of the 3 was a male wearing a full black bodysuit with a black hood and purple face paint, and possessed a bulky, bandaged package on his back. His female companion wore her dirty blonde hair and 4 pigtails in the back, along with a pale lavender outfit and fishnet stockings, and wielded a giant battle fan. However, it was the third, shortest member of the trio that ended up causing the problem. He possessed hair the color of dried blood and skin the same hue as Haru's. His clothing consisted of a black bodysuit shorter than the other boys', the sleeves going only halfway down his biceps. From the edge of the sleeves to just above the elbow he wore fishnet. A long white sash hung over his right shoulder and crossed his body to his left hip, the loose ends of the sash moving in the breeze. From his left shoulder to the other hip crossed a brown, leather band, similar to Kisame's, Naruto noted, with multiple buckles. Connected to the leather was a large gourd with black markings on it. Black sandals covered his feet, and bandages were wrapped around his ankles. A tattoo with the kanji for love was imprinted upon his forehead, and dead teal eyes peered out from within black-rimmed sockets. The red-haired male stopped suddenly when they were about to cross paths with Naruto and Fu, causing his two teammates to stop as well. He stared at the pair intently for a solid 30 seconds before Fu groaned and clutched her stomach in pain. "Shikaku," buzzed a voice in her head before lapsing into silence. "You," spoke the redhead with a voice as dry as the desert. Naruto wasn't sure whether the boy was talking to himself or Fu, but hearing him say the single word gave him the creeps. It was like talking to Itachi, only his own age. "You're like me." His teal eyes were focused on Fu, and Naruto became distinctly uncomfortable with the gaze on his friend. The boy's two teammates also seemed rather nervous at the initiation of conversation. "I will kill you to validate my existence," he finished. Naruto gulped. The way he said it, the proclamation was a fact, like if Kakuzu walked up to him and said, "I like money." He'd never met an individual so prepossessed with surety. Naruto's fists clenched, and he stepped forward slightly in order to partially shield Fu from view. "You can try," he uttered with more confidence than he felt, "but you won't succeed." Not a flicker of emotion passed over the other boy's face. "You have a strong will," he said after a moment, "but that will not be enough to save you. Or her. When we meet in the Chunin exams, you will die." His piece said, the redhead and his two teammates continued on their way. When they passed Naruto, the blonde felt a stirring in his mind, as if something in there was restless. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to calm the unease he felt in his body. "Sabaku no Gara," answered the redhead. "You and your Aimnin brethren will satisfy mother." Naruto didn't have anything to say in response, and so Gara and his two teammates walked on, the blonde's bright blue eyes on them until they disappeared around a corner. "Come on," Naruto prodded, helping the recovering Fu get to her feet. "Let's get back to the hotel and tell Aizo-sensei about our new friend." Together they managed to get back to their room without any more distractions, the green-haired girl recovering from her brief bout of pain just inside the front doors. Upon reaching their room, Naruto noticed that neither Kakuzu nor Haru had returned. He guided his companion to her bed and helped her sit down, despite protests that she was fine. Naruto sat down across from her and eyed her speculatively. "What was that?" "I'm guessing an insane genin native to Suna," Fu replied snippily. Naruto shot her a look. "Not him, you. What was with the sudden stomach pain?" he clarified. There was a brief pause before he slowly added, "Come to think of it, you had the same reaction when we met." Fu shrugged. "The beetle likes to talk to me sometimes." "The bee, I have an idea," Naruto broke off. He settled himself into a cross-legged position, holding out his hands palms down. "Grab my hands and close your eyes," he ordered. She complied, clasping their hands together and allowing her eyelids to flutter shut. Naruto closed his own eyes and evened out his breathing, settling into a meditation technique that Kisame had taught him early on in their training. The blonde had visited his mindscape once before, after falling unconscious upon his summoning of the chameleon boss. Then it had been an accident, a byproduct of chakra loss and exhaustion. This time, he was attempting to accomplish an even more daring feat, entering his mindscape intentionally, and also bringing someone with him. After several minutes, Naruto opened his eyes. He was ankle-deep in sewer water, hands clasped firmly with Fu's. "Hey," he whispered, "we're here." The green-haired girl opened her orange orbs, gazing around in a mixture of awe and disgust. They stood in the sewer water that she assumed was indicative of Naruto's mindscape. Over Naruto's shoulders she could see a field of wilted flowers, the sign of her own mindscape. About 200 feet beyond her lay a series of honey-colored bars set up in a beehive shape. Held within the cage was a huge creature, possessing a blue upper body with a thick carapace, under which were set 6 multi-jointed limbs, each ending in a green, serrated hand. Large, horn-like extensions jutted forth from each shoulder, its head, and its upper and middle back. A pair of wickedly sharp mandibles was connected to a helmet-like structure which hid the creature's eyes. The creature's thorax was colored a bright green, separating into 7 tail-like appendages, 6 of which had red, orange, and yellow wings sprouting from them. Fu scowled. This was the home of her bijou, the 7-tailed horned beetle which had made her life miserable for as long as she could remember. FKYBI, he buzzed, his raspy voice turning angrier at the second name. QB? Thought Fu, confused. Then she heard the roar. Release me from this prison, you worthless sack of flesh. Wide-eyed, Fu whipped around and laid claim to the sight of a giant, larger than the Nanabai, 9-tailed fox, with a red-orange pelt and cruel, intelligent, blood-red eyes, held beyond jail cell bars. The fox raised one giant paw and crashed it through the gate, coming within 10 feet of the Jinchuriki's position. Damn this seal. Damn the Yandame Hokage. I would RIP you to shreds if it weren't for this accursed seal, he growled, frustrated. Naruto stepped in front of Fu, as if to shield her from the QB. The movement also afforded Fu the opportunity to avert her eyes without appearing weak. Something to the right caught her attention, and she focused upon it while Naruto had a staring contest with the bijou within him. Out of her periphery, she had absently noticed that the area to her left seemed to be an endless expanse of hallway. To the right, about 15 feet after the cage bars ended, was a mass of black threads that spanned the entire hallway, completely obstructing the path. Thick strands branched out and connected to the wall, ceiling, and floor, stabilizing the entire web-like structure. In the center of the web were 2 masks, one with blue markings in the shape of a hippo, the second a bear mask with red designs. The strange web design, Fu guessed, was probably representative of Naruto's Jiangu ability. Etched in the foot of stone at the top of the hallway were crude pictures of chameleons, the internal representation of Naruto's connection to the chameleon summoning contract. The female Jinchuriki refocused her attention on Naruto and the QB in time to hear the beast growl, "What do you want from me, child? I have little reason or motivation to grant you assistance, unless I am somehow benefited by it. And why is the fly here?" "I am no fly," rasped the Nanabai, whipping its non-winged tail through its cage and producing a thunderous crack against the ground. "I am the Nanabai no Kabutomushi, bringer of dust storms and whirlwinds, capable of disintegrating anything that gets caught in my winds. I ravaged the plains of Iwagakure while the tale of your capture spread to our remaining brethren. I am the 3rd most powerful bijou in existence, and I will not be demeaned by even you, you cursed kitsune," bristled the 7 tails. A low, throaty sound emerged from the QB, and it took both Jinchuriki a moment to realize the giant fox was chuckling. "If those are your boasts, you are more pathetic than I remember. Get this dust mite out of my sight, child," demanded the 9 tails. "No," Naruto responded stubbornly, "we need to talk to both of you. This is the most convenient way to do so. What makes you think that either I or the butterfly over there will give you any information?" QB snarled. "I am not a butterfly." "What's Shikaku?" interrupted Fu. The 2 bickering demons fell silent at the question. "When we came across that Gaara guy, you said Shikaku," she stated slowly, turning to face her bijou. "What's Shikaku? I want to know if it's a threat to our mission." Both bijou began to laugh, QB's deep and sinister, Nanabai's raspy and grating. "Shikaku is hardly a threat," the fox chuckled. "That runt may pose a challenge to you mere mortals, but to us, Shikaku is nothing." "Shikaku is the weakest of us all," agreed the beetle. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Of us all," he repeated. "Shikaku's a bijou?" Fu slammed one fist into the other palm. "Of course!" she cried. "Gaara said that I'm just like him. He's a Jinchuriki, too." "This Gaara, he is from Sunigakure?" The 2 children nodded. "Then his being the host of Shikaku does not surprise me. Suna has kept a tight grasp on Shikaku since the fool's initial capture." "Yes, they should," buzzed Nanabai in agreement. "Our sibling, Ichibi no Shikaku, is the most famed Suna has had since its formation. It and the puppeteer Chikamatsu Manzaman, and no mere human can compare to the power of a Biju. So Gaara's also a Jinchuriki, pondered Fu. We'll have to watch out for him. Naruto nodded his agreement. But why did he only sense your Biju? He asked, turning to face his companion. She didn't have an answer for him. The seal, growled the Kyuubi. The fourth Hokage created a unique and powerful seal to contain me, one that had never before been used. As long as I hold no influence over you, I am undetectable by most everyone. Only the Hachibi and this annoying insect have the power or ability to sense my presence in this state. The fox gestured with his large head in the direction of the seven tails across from it. I sensed that wasn't a compliment, rasped the Nanabi. The Kyuubi snorted in reply, but the beetle ignored it. As Fu knows well, the seal that binds me to her is a weaker one, capable of containment and preventing some measure of my influence. However, I retain a certain amount of power, the ability to sense the other Biju, and communication abilities with my host. Not that I like to take advantage of that little ability, Fu replied dryly. Whether you like it or not, the ease with which we talk has come in handy. Certainly the side effects are entertaining to witness. Fu clutched her stomach in memory of the phantom pain she had experienced prior, the pain she felt whenever her tailed beast conversed with her. And then Fu and the seven tails disappeared from view. The Kyuubi was soon to follow. I apologize for putting an end to this rather heartfelt display of affection, spoke a new voice, sounding completely unsympathetic. Naruto groaned. He could recognize the dry, cynical tone of Kakuzu even in his sleep. It wasn't affection, protested Naruto, cracking his stiff neck. He suddenly noticed Haro standing beside his teacher, meditating to help compile what we know about the exams. Kakuzu's facial expression didn't seem to change, but Naruto identified skepticism and curiosity within the even stare the tall ninja leveled him with. Call it what you will, brat, responded Kakuzu, choosing not to probe just yet. The bounty hunter then proceeded to tell his three students about what he'd uncovered during the day, that the Chunin exams consisted of 3 parts. The first was some form of written test, the second a survival portion, and the third a tournament between competitors. I have exhausted my patience with collecting intelligence for you, he said when finished, and as such, I have no desire to assist you anymore. He seemed to believe they could interpret the unspoken threat, for he turned on his heel and walked into his room, slamming the door behind him. The 3 children could only exchange looks and shrug. After Haro left the room the next morning, Naruto knocked lightly on Kakuzu's door. The bounty hunter growled, "What?" from inside his conclave. Naruto gulped and hesitated before answering. Can we talk?" When there was no response, Naruto chose to take the silence as a yes. He opened the door slowly, using it as a shield in case he had misinterpreted his teacher's intentions. "Your meditation," Kakuzu began once Naruto had closed the door, "was what I presumed to be a conversation with your Biju." Naruto bobbed his head in affirmation. "Speak." Naruto remained standing, telling Kakuzu about his and Fu's confrontation with Sabaka no Gaara, the ensuing talk with the Kyuubi and the Nanabi, and the deduction that Gaara was the container of another tailed beast. Once his tale was done, Naruto watched Kakuzu silently mull over the information. Finally, the tall ninja said, "Our employer informed me that there would be another Jinchuriki present in the exams, but I admit that I was not told any other information beyond that. However, he is not your objective. You are to get as far as possible in the exams to make my movements around the village inconspicuous and give us as much access to Konoha as possible. Avoid this Gaara child if possible, lest you slip up and reveal more of your abilities than strictly necessary." Realizing that his teacher was done talking, Naruto nodded in understanding before leaving the room and going to rejoin Fu to pass on the message. The days until the Chunin exams began seemed to drag on, but after what felt like forever, Naruto found himself walking through the village with Fu and Haro at his side. They arrived at Konoha's Ninja Academy, and were soon caught up in the swarm of students gathered outside room 301. "What's going on?" Naruto whispered to Fu, who was the tallest on their team. "We only came up 1 flight of stairs." Fu stood on tiptoe to get a better view. 2 ninja are guarding the entrance. They just kicked that Rock Lee kid away, and some other girl, too, she added after a moment. We should wait for someone else to notice, Haro advised quietly, so as to not give away our skill level. Naruto remembered Kakuzu's words about avoiding Gaara to keep their power hidden and nodded his agreement. It only took 10 seconds before a raven-haired boy in blue stepped forward. I will pass, he declared, once you remove that illusion you've placed on the doorway. Muted whispering followed this announcement, partially muffling the boy's baton pass to a pink-haired girl, who took over the explanation of why the scene was an illusion. The sign above the door morphed before the crowd's eyes to read 201. Naruto nodded his head towards the door. Let's go, he said, weaving through the throng of genin. He and his 2 teammates went through the hallway as Rock Lee and his teammates fell into an argument with the raven-haired kid and his pink-haired teammate. Well, that's one obstacle avoided, Naruto observed. They entered a large room filled with long benches and chunin hopefuls. Naruto glanced around. Just as Kakuzu had said, genin from the leaf, sand, grass, rain, and waterfall were present in varying quantities, as well as what appeared to be a single team with the strange musical note headbands. The blonde wanted to say something, but Fu had taken to trying to hide herself, and Haro's gaze was half-lidded with boredom. What are you doing? He demanded quietly of Fu. You've been gone from your home village for a long time, she whispered fiercely, and with your outfit, the odds of them recognizing you are slim. I've only been gone from Tucky for a year, and my outfit isn't nearly as concealing as yours. Okay, I see your point, but you're making yourself stand out more by trying to be inconspicuous, he retorted. The Nanabai Jinchuriki straightened herself slightly, but continued to use Naruto as a shield. The blonde sighed at his friend's antics, but chose to ignore her and scanned the room instead, noting that Lee and his team had entered the room. Sasuke-kun! Squealed a girl in a purple top and skirt outfit with platinum blonde hair. She leaped onto the back of the raven-haired boy, who had entered the room with his team behind Lee, and hooked her arms around his neck. While flames seemed to erupt in the eyes of the pink-haired girl, 2 more boys meandered through the crowd towards the ensuing argument. Just like the day he and Fu met Rock Lee and Sabaka no Gaara, Naruto's mind instantly snapped to bingo book mode, except this time, the voice that sounded like Kakuzu spoke about identities rather than numbers. The platinum blonde was a Yamanaka, one of the members of Sarutobi Asuma's team and part of a family proficient in mental manipulations. The 2 boys who had approached the group, one with hair tied up in a style reminiscent of a pineapple, the other a somewhat chubby lad munching on chips, were her 2 teammates, a Nara and an Akimichi, respectively. Nara clan members were notorious for their mastery over shadows, and the Akimichi were able to manipulate the sizes of their body and body part to do battle. If the boy that the Yamanaka was fawning over really was Sasuke-kun, then he was the last, loyal member of the prominent Uchiha clan, and one of Hatake Kakashi's students. From what he had read and learned from Kakuzu and Ryo, the Uchiha were to be respected for their skill in Kekkei Genkai, the Sharingan. Even as a genin, he would have to be watched out for. His 2 teammates, the pink-haired girl with emerald green eyes and a pale-skinned, black-haired boy in black, who bore a passing resemblance to the Uchiha, Naruto noticed, didn't bear any noticeable clan markings or attributes that Naruto could pinpoint as belonging to a specific clan. A 3rd team approached, all of its members identifiable. The female had the dark hair and pale, lavender eyes of the legendary Hyuga, renowned worldwide for their unique taijutsu style. Next to her stood a brunette with the red, fawn-like facial markings of the Inuzuka. The small white dog sitting atop his head confirmed his affiliation. Their 3rd teammate wore a long overcoat, much like Kakuzu, and dark sunglasses typical of the several Abdurrahim pictured in the bingo book. Naruto's eyes found Lee's green jumpsuit in the crowd and noted the Hyuga features of Lee's male teammate, though this one seemed more haughty and arrogant than the female. She wore a pink shirt and possessed hair styled in 2 buns atop her head. Like Sasuke's 2 teammates and Lee, she had no recognizable clan features. Naruto could only assume that the entire team was well versed in taijutsu, since their instructor was the famed Mado guy. The blonde was pulled from his thoughts as the door slammed open, revealing a tall, blocky man with 2 large scars across his face. Similar to Naruto, he wore a hideyate that fully covered his head, and the blonde was forced to wonder what he was hiding underneath. He scratched at the head covering in irritation of the reminder that he had to remain disguised. "Silence, maggots!" barked the newcomer, a group of gray-suited ninja filing in behind him. "My name is Marino Ibiki, and I am the proctor for the first exam. If you'll all turn in your applications and take a number, you can find your corresponding seat, and we can get started with the written test." Several groans greeted this announcement, but all the Chunin hopefuls formed lines and exchanged applications for numbers. It took a while, but soon enough, Naruto found himself seated on the right side of the room, in a seat with a random Konohani to his left and the Hyuga girl to his right. From the corner of his eye, he caught her twiddling her fingers nervously, but chose to ignore her in favor of looking for his teammates. Fu sat 4 rows in front of him, and 3 seats to the right. Haro was on the left side of the room, 1 row in front of him and 2 seats from the left wall. Ibiki began speaking again, his tone gruff and no-nonsense. "Listen carefully, maggots. There are several rules to this exam, and I'm not going to repeat them or take any questions. Now, each person begins with 10 points, and each question on the test is worth 1 point. If you get all the questions right, you keep your 10 points. If you get 3 questions wrong, your score is 7 points. Second, you will be scored as a team. If anyone on the team receives a 0, the entire team will fail. Third, if any of the proctors catch you cheating, you'll lose 2 points for each occurrence, meaning that if you're caught 5 times, you will fail this exam," he enunciated carefully. He allowed a brief silence to fall over the crowd of genin in order to allow them to digest this information before continuing. "The 10th question will be given 45 minutes after the exam has started. You have an hour to complete the exam." Ibiki gazed around the room, eyes hard as diamonds. "Begin!" There was a rustle as the genin all flipped over their papers, the scribbling of pencils against parchment sounding from only a couple of ninja. Naruto scrutinized the paper carefully, skimming over the 9 questions. He scowled after taking a minute to read through the questions. All of them seemed ridiculously difficult, though Naruto supposed that was probably the point. Shrugging slightly, the undercover genin focused his attention on the first question, an encryption. Fortunately, Kakuzu had taught him the logic behind decoding ciphers, and he quickly went to work. Fu sat at her desk, thinking. She had answered the 6th question, one regarding economics and the best way to regulate funds for a mission in a strange area. She was sure Kakuzu would have her head if she missed that one, when she realized how ridiculous the test was. She had only been able to answer that question because of rigorous training under Kakuzu, and she knew that no one else had undergone the same regimen she, and to a greater extent, Naruto, had. Unlike Naruto, who had no experience of a Hidden Villages Academy program, Fu had some idea of what was taught in school. Questions of this magnitude had little to no chance of being answered by mere genin. Cheating violations were also punished much harsher in school than in the rules the proctor had set forth. The only explanation was that the test required the genin to cheat in order to get the answers. She tapped her pencil against her paper repetitively, using the monotony of the sound to concentrate. Naruto was reasonably intelligent, and would be able to solve some of the questions. Haro seemed to be smart enough, but there were better methods to pass the test. There were few occasions where Fu was grateful to be the container to the 7-tailed horned beetle. This was one of them. The Nanabi's abilities allowed her to manipulate dust on any scale, and the convenient thing about that was that dust particles existed in minute amounts in the air. She twirled the pencil in her hand, collecting a small, barely visible cloud of dust around the tip, then sent it out. Her target was the male genin at the end of her row, in the aisle seat. His hand had not stopped moving since Ibiki had called for the test to begin. 15 minutes passed, during which Fu stared steadfastly at her paper, trying to see if there was anything else she could solve. Once she had allowed the quarter of an hour to pass, she recalled the dust to her. It settled on her paper in a layer thick enough to read the male genin's writing. Fu scribbled down the answers and then collected more dust to her, allowing it to settle around the shallow markings her pencil lead had made. The green-haired girl sent the 2 dust clouds flying surreptitiously towards Naruto and Haro. Imbued with her chakra, they would settle on her teammates' papers and give them all the answers. Fu looked up at the clock. 35 minutes had passed since the start of the test. She could only pray that when the 10th question was delivered in 10 minutes, there would be no other game-changing rules alongside it. Naruto looked up at the clock and frowned. 10 minutes before the 10th question, and he had managed to answer 2 more questions, one about economics. Kakuzu would have killed him for missing that, he thought, unknowingly echoing Fue's sentiment, and another about the founding history of the 5 great shinobi nations. An obscene amount of dust seemed to settle on his paper. Frustrated, he blew it away and glared at his test. The dust particles coalesced onto the test again, and he blew them away for a second time. When the dust came back for a third time, Naruto remembered that Fue's Biju allowed her control over the substance. This time, he allowed the dust to form a film on his paper, spelling out the answers to the questions in Fue's neat scrawl. Taking advantage of his friend's skill, Naruto went to work copying the answers and eventually finished with only a couple of minutes to spare. He breathed a mental sigh of relief, turned over his paper, and linked his fingers together, stretching them out and cracking the knuckles. The blonde took the moment to eye the room. While he had been writing answers, a good chunk of ninja had failed the exam. Naruto counted at least 10 teams absent. Ibiki stepped forward after another minute, announcing, "Before the 10th question is distributed, there is a stipulation." When he had everyone's attention, he continued, "You have a choice in whether or not you want to take the 10th question. If you choose not to take it, you and your teammates will fail immediately. However, if you take it and get it wrong, you will be permanently banned from participating in the Chunin exams ever again." He was immediately interrupted by the Inuzuka. "What kind of crap is that?" demanded the brunette, getting to his seat and pointing at Ibiki. "There are people here who've taken the Chunin exams before." The proctor let out a bark of laughter. "I wasn't the proctor for those tests. Now that I'm in charge, the rules have changed. If you choose to take this question and fail, you will remain a genin forever. If you don't want to take the question, raise your hand and one of the examiners will take down your number. Then you and your teammates are free to leave." Silence reigned for several seconds before the first trembling hand rose into the air. The Konohani next to Naruto rose slowly. "I quit. I can't take it," he shouted. One of the Chunin examiners scribbled something on his sheet of paper. "Numbers 111 and 130, you fail alongside number 50. That one action was like a catalyst. Hands from all over the room shot up, and numbers were methodically called out, alongside the words, "You fail. Please leave the room." Then, the unthinkable happened. Naruto, bored with the proceedings, yawned. Ibiki's gaze snapped over to the blonde in the blink of an eye. "Do you find this boring, Nin?" the proctor queried with false patience. Naruto supposed that, in his own way, Ibiki was a rather scary individual. The only problem was that Naruto had been raised by Kakuzu and, to a shorter extent, Kisame, both of whom were hardcore, S-class missing nin who believed in intimidation and lessons filled with pain above all else. Compared to them, Marino Ibiki was like a fledgling bird just learning to fly. "Honestly, yes," he replied in a bored tone. "I'm sure on some level your threat is meant to be scary, but I'm just not buying it. Sorry for interrupting your fun, but if we could get on with this, I would really appreciate it." If Ibiki was surprised by Naruto's response, he didn't show it. His stony face scanned the room, trying to intimidate anyone else into leaving, but all the genin, even some of the weaker ones, stood their ground. "Cocky kid," he thought. "Congratulations. All of you in this room have passed the first portion of the Chunin exams." "What about the 10th question?" someone asked. Naruto turned around and spied the Uchiha's pink-haired teammate with her hands planted squarely on the bench. Ibiki smiled, causing the blonde to shudder. Certain people should not be allowed to do that. There was no 10th question. Or, if you prefer, choosing to stay or leave was the 10th question. Naruto ignored Ibiki's explanation regarding the first 9 questions, the importance of information on missions, and how false information could drastically hurt a village. He perked up slightly when Ibiki took off his head covering, revealing burn marks and screw holes, signs of torture from missions past, but went back to zoning out when Ibiki continued his diatribe. The Kyubi Jinchuriki was brought back to wakefulness by the sounding of shattering glass. A large bundle had come through one of the windows and was currently in the process of unrolling. Standing in front of a large banner which read Second Examiner, Mitarashi Anko is here was a purple-haired woman in an open, tan trenchcoat, wearing mostly fishnet for clothing. I am the second examiner, Mitarashi Anko, she announced needlessly. Let's go to the next exam. Follow me.